According to statistics, girls all over the world are victims of inequality and unfair treatment in various spheres.
Former Chadian opposition figure Salem Kezobo promised to accompany the young Chadian ruler Mahamat Idris Deby.
In Sudan, 7 million children did not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly two-thirds of the 45 million inhabitants live. Welcome to the 1 p.m. English News edition. I'm Hazel OGOIGBE and I'm with my co-host
Hazel OGOIGBE. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. ADOGLO.
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing this fine afternoon?
Very fine, thank you.
All right, let's get started. Now, it's like the former member of Parliament, OGOIGBE, has joined the opposition party, the Democrats. This was on Wednesday, October 12th, at a press conference in Cotonou that gathered members of the political party. He assured the audience that his choice was not made out of the blue. It was well thought out, and he has finally decided to answer the call of the population. Let's have a listen and find out which population exactly he's speaking of.
Chercher des solutions aux difficultés du peuple, ne pas trahir les attentes de cette jeunesse et de toutes ces femmes.
Remaining consistent, remaining close to the populations, looking for ways to solve the problems of the populations, never betray the trust of the youths and all the women. Stand up and fight with pride and dignity. Set Benin back on the tracks of hope and democracy and restore the rule of law. These are the reasons why we've decided to join the Democrats. Let me reassure you that it is a well-thought choice, the youth and the women's choice. It is your choice. You've been asking me to join the Democrats. Well, now it is done. I had a lot of counselors before making this choice, and the Almighty God was one of them. I will give my everything to this new task and make this political party the best. We are convinced that we are fighting for our youths, our women, our elders, and our people. We are fighting to shed light where there was shadow. Together with the Democrats, we are fighting to bring happiness to those who are sad. We want the youths of all the 12 departments to know that there is still hope. Where people have lost their jobs, we will work on creating more employments. It's now time to work hard. It's now time to be out on the field. We want everybody to know that we will not only go to the next parliamentary elections, but we will be the winners.
Nous devons aller dire à nos parents et clamer partout que nous irons non seulement aux prochaines élections législatives, mais que nous les gagnerons.
Still, of course, on the local scene after the tragedy that took place at the National University and Hospital Center, Hubert K. Maga Senatru in Cotonou on Friday, the 7th of October, a delegation of the Regulatory Authority of Health Sector, ARS, had a meeting with its director. Now, this was to inform the latter as well as the population that they are now in charge of this case and they intend to lead it to a successful conclusion. More information in the following report.
De régulation du secteur de la santé pour investiguer au sujet du drame qui a frappé la nation et qui s'est déroulé dans notre établissement.
The presence of the Regulatory Authority of the Health Sector is to investigate the tragic events that occurred in our country, especially in your hospital. So we are here to let you know that we are already investigating since Friday, the day of the tragedy, the death of the 4 patients. For now, everything is going smoothly. In due time, the populations and of course the head of states will be presented with the outcomes of our investigations. Furthermore, what really matters to us is that these investigations help improve the quality of the services of the health sector on the national territory. In the matter of investigations, we can never foresee neither the outcomes nor the duration. The most important is the quality of the outcomes, because they will be used as basis for recommendations and new measures. So it's not about rushing, but rather going deep into every single details. It's quite too early to give any details. Currently, a lot of informations are available, especially on social media, but as experts, we really need to gather more proofs before saying anything. So once we are not done, once we do not have all the elements, it is not advisable for us to comment.
Avant de parler. Donc tant qu'on n'a pas fini, tant qu'on n'a pas tous les résultats des investigations, nous ne pourrons pas nous exprimer.
Je peux vous dire que les praticiens du CNHU s'emploient tous les jours à prendre en charge nos populations. Ce qui est survenu.
I can assure you that the professionals of the CNHU are dedicated in attending to the populations on a regular basis. What happened is a really serious matter, and several measures have already been put in place to avoid such situation in the future. You were also worried about the availability of generators in here. Let me reassure you one more time that we have a central generator of 900 kilowatts, which powers the whole hospital in case of power cuts, and 8 other generators for different services of the CNHU. However, you should always bear in mind that no matter what the precautions you take, some things might still go wrong. And this is why this team is here to lead the investigations in order to shed light on what really happened. Besides that, our justice is also on this case. This is all we know for now. When such things happen, you can easily guess the state of mind that is currently prevailing in this hospital. Everybody, from the hospital staff to the families of the victims, everybody has been affected. Regardless of all this, we are always available for the justice system and the populations as well, because this is our duty.
Their duty indeed. Moving on from that, according to statistics, girls all over the world are victims of inequality and unfair treatment in various spheres. The girl child is the foundation of the development of a nation. This report highlights some of the challenges the girl child encounters daily and the preferred solutions to them. We have more information in this report.
The International Day of the Girl Child celebrates the power of girls and highlights the barriers the girl child faces in our society. The International Day of the Girl Child is marked on the 11th of October every year, as declared by the United Nations General Assembly in 2011. The theme for 2020 celebration is "Our time is now, our rights, our future." Speaking on the problem the girl child faces, an educationist had this to say.
One of the problems is economic deprivation. By the time we grow to a marriageable age, we discover that our husbands now take charge of the finance and everything, and we are supposed to submit and be the lower income person. But in this time and age, it's not usually supposed to be like that again. A woman has to stand up and take the bull by the horn and be able to stand up and be independent in whatever you do. Because if you want to be sure to have a good future, then you have to start from now to start to build it. And apart from that, there's a lot of abuse, because with the guys, with the lecturers, you also have to prove that your brain is there, your brain is working well, and your dignity is standing. Because there's a lot of violence, domestic violence, there's a lot of abuse on the woman, because you are meant to pay for everything with your body, with your dignity, with your innocence, with everything.
Sadly, most times, the girl child is faced with the responsibility of catering to the needs of her parents and her siblings. Oftentimes, the girl child, in search for greener pastures, becomes a victim of human trafficking.
So much responsibility is laid upon a girl child, upon a woman figure, a female figure in the society in Africa here. So and there is not much job opportunities for women back home. Opportunities that are available are outside the country. And these opportunities that are available are meant mainly for male figures. So women find it very difficult to be able to flow into the market world in order to be able to get something to take care of their poverty. So that is the challenges in migration. So, and the human traffickers are there to quickly harvest them.
Speaking on the theme of this year's celebration, Our Time Is Now, Our Rights and the Future, the youth coordinator for the Nigerians and Diaspora Women's Wing in Benin had this to say.
And what I think about this theme is that it's timely, because most of us girls don't know that this is the time for us to act. We are waiting for a future. We are waiting for something to happen before we do what we're supposed to do. But now this theme is actually telling us that we girls need to get up. We don't need to wait until we are married before we start building our future.
Inadequate sexual education is one of the major obstacles faced by the girl child.
Most ladies do not have any education on menstrual hygiene or even infections when they have it, signs and symptoms. Some even go through PMS, which is post-menstrual symptoms or premenstrual symptoms, without the knowledge of it. And this is really an issue that the world needs to come to know about and need to work on to help the girl child know that these things are normal for their systems. Call back that your friend that you feel that doesn't have an idea about it and tell her, talk to her. And some people, this thing causes body odor.
Unfortunately, more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation in 30 countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. This act is carried out at age 15.
They cause their genitals, and which is very, very bad. It's not good. It's unhealthy. For the science people, it's really bad. They really need to stop cutting genitals like that. Your girl child can make anything in life. You just have to give her that support. She's even more than a male child can be. Just have to give her the support, the love, and the care that you give to a male child.
In every part of the world, all girls have the right to a safe and educated, healthy life.
A woman can actually make a company grow much bigger, can boost their economy in a company. They can do so many things. My advice to a child is that she should be courageous, outstanding, she should be confident, and she should not be dependent on anybody, rather independent.
Every girl child should be free from societal stereotypes. The girl child should not be deprived from education because of her gender. African countries need to get to a point where the girl child is prioritized in every aspect, giving her the opportunity to get to the zenith of her chosen path in life. Away from that, crossing over to Kenya, the increasing cooperation and trade between China and Africa is opening doors for many companies on the continent. Now, this includes in Kenya, which has become the first African nation to export avocados to China. Now, this has boosted the economy and benefiting players across the avocado value chain, including farmers in Kenya.
This is Kakuzi Public Limited Company, one of Kenya's listed agribusiness farms in the capital, Nairobi. Workers here are preparing the company's latest consignment of fresh avocados. The avocados are destined to be sold in one of China's largest fresh fruit and vegetable markets, Huizan, in Shanghai. Kakuzi is one of the lucky 15 Kenyan farms that have been granted access to the Chinese market. Chris Flowers is the managing director of the company.
This is our first year of exporting, and our fruit's been received very, very well. We've got some big consignments arriving very much at the moment, and for the rest of the next 4 to 5 weeks, we're going to have quite a lot of fruit going into the Chinese market. And this learning curve is going to be something that we're walking, essentially. We're walking that journey over the next month or two, and hopefully by next year, if there are challenges or difficulties, they're ironed out, and we're able to have a very smooth export process.
This is the third shipment since the two countries signed an export agreement in January this year. The company has so far exported 210 tons worth of fresh avocados to China. It's here that Kenya's premium avocados are graded, sorted, and packed for shipment to one of the country's most lucrative markets, China. Grace Njero is the technical manager of the company. Njero is optimistic about the Kenya-China trade deal.
We hope that this is a market that can be accessed by most farmers in Kenya. It has helped us know where to train our farmers on, because we are the lucky ones to have gotten up ahead of them, and then to ensure that they also get the knowledge on how to produce good fruit that meets that kind of a market. So it has opened many training opportunities for our local farmers.
Jonathan Kipruto is the assistant general manager of the farm. Kipruto says the company believes in maintaining the export standards set by China.
I believe that the main thing is ability to meet the quality requirements which are spelled out by the Chinese market, and then maintain those standards. That will enable us to continuously supply what we produce to the China market.
Trade volume between Kenya and China has risen over the years. From January to July 2022, the total value of Kenya's imports from China was over $4.5 billion, a year-on-year increase of 25%. The total value of Kenya's exports to China was over $156 million, a year-on-year increase of 9.6%.
The Chinese market's hugely important for Kenya. We've got traditional markets, Europe, Middle East, but the Chinese market really gives us great options. As well, it complements a lot of the fruit that we produce. So the European, Middle East market tends to favor bigger fruit, and the Chinese market favors a smaller fruit. So it's a complementary market.
The breakthrough is expected to increase Kenya's foreign exchange earnings and boost the local economy.
In Sudan, 7 million children did not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly two-thirds of the 45 million inhabitants live, a catastrophe for an entire generation, according to NGOs. As a result, Sudan and its 12.4 million students are the second most vulnerable country in terms of schooling, according to the Risk Education Index. We have more for you on that. In Sudan, 7 million children do not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly two-thirds of the 45 million inhabitants live, a catastrophe for an entire generation, according to the NGOs. Already during the 30-year dictatorship of Omar al-Bashir, who will be removed in office in 2019 following the popular protest movement, families withdrew their children from school to cope with the economic crisis.
The main reason behind dropping out of school is extreme poverty in rural areas. I would like to point out that providing school meals have contributed to their stability. Putting them to work is not good. For the future, there is nothing like education, but one is forced to put them to work to at least bring in daily food. But if we can afford education, we will always wish it for them. It's all about living conditions. If we let them all go to school, and if we have a big family, I won't be able to provide for the family.
The political and economic stagnation that followed the coup a year ago, recurring ethnic conflicts and prolonged school closures due to the COVID-19 pandemic have only worsened the situation in this country, one of the poorest in the world. And every year, heavy rains destroy schools. This summer, 600 schools were damaged. As a result, Sudan and its 12.4 million students are the second most vulnerable country in terms of schooling, according to the Risk Education Index. A symbol of the distress that reaches even teachers, the latter regularly demonstrate to demand better salaries or denounce a military power incapable of raising the country.
We hope that there will be no strikes, so we can continue to provide classes. Hopefully, it will be a good school year.
Speaking to journalists on Wednesday, former Chadian opposition figure Saleh Kebzabo promised to accompany the young Chadian ruler Mahamat Idris Deby in the great endeavor to restore stability to their democracy within the next 2 years of political transition. Now, he made this statement after his appointment as Prime Minister to lead a government of national union. More information in the following report.
Former Chadian opposition figure Saleh Kebzabo says that the respect of all freedoms and human rights in all their forms will be part of the program after his appointment by the Chadian ruler Mohamed Idris Deby as Prime Minister to lead the government of national union. Deby named Saleh Kebzabo, a former journalist who ran 4 times for the presidency against his iron-fisted father Idris Deby Itno, to steer the country back into civilian government. The 30-year-old 5-star general took after the elder, Deby, in power for 3 decades, was killed during an operation against rebels in April 2021. But he has since angered many at home and embarrassed backers abroad by pushing to stay in power beyond an initially promised deadline and contest promised elections. Speaking to journalists on Wednesday, Kebzabo promised to accompany the young Itno in a great endeavor, the next 2 years of political transition. Kebzabo, a fierce opponent in the last years of the elder Deby's rule, has been swift to recognize his son as leader after his death. 2 leaders in the UNDR party took part in the first transition government named by the Transitional Council. Deby had originally declared it would restore civilian rule after 18 months in power, and he had at first promised not to take part in the elections that would follow. But as the 18-month deadline neared, a nationwide film staged by Deby reset the clock. Last weekend, it approved a new 24-month time frame for holding elections, named Deby transitional president for the interim, and declared he could be candidate on the poll. Deby was sworn in on Monday, vowing to name a government of national union within days. The outgoing premier was 55-year-old political veteran Albert Bahimi Bagka, who had served for 18 months and has also been prime minister under Deby's father. He formally resigned on Tuesday along with his government.
We are going to tackle all these challenges, and there are many of them. We've seen it. For 45 days, they've been described from beginning to end. I was listening to the dialogue. I was listening to the pre-dialogue in Doha. I was listening to the other pre-dialogues in West Africa. So this is a problem that I know about and that I hope I will be able to find solutions to as I go along. All freedoms must be respected, starting with the freedom of the press, without which nothing can be done. Human rights in all their forms, socio-economic rights, freedoms, and political rights. All this is part of this program, and so we are going to work on this with all our determination.
A semi-desert country located in the heart of Central West Africa, Chad has been chronically unstable since it gained independence from France in 1960. Under Elder Deby, Chad became a valued ally to Western countries fearing the spread of terrorism in the Sahel. Preferring displeasure at his son's push for power in defiance of appeals for an earlier handback to civilian rule was visible at Monday's inauguration ceremony. The African Union snubbed the event, while France and the European Union were represented by only the ambassadors. Just 3 weeks earlier, the African Union urged the Transitional Council not to extend its stay in power beyond 18 months. With the exception of the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, no other African countries sent their heads of state. A handful of important neighbors, Niger, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, were represented by their ministers. The African Union and the West African bloc ECOWAS have been fierce critics of the strings of coups that have swept the region in the past 2 years, with takeovers in Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Mali, as well as Chad. In Mozambique, northern Cabo Delgado province, more than 4,000 people have been killed and nearly 1 million were forced to flee their homes while attacks and civilians continue. Some areas are now under government control.
A year ago, this town was run by Islamist insurgents. Their main base was at the airport, but these troops chased them away, Rwandan forces supporting Mozambique. Today, life is slowly getting back to normal. Those who fled are returning.
People were killed here. They were murdered. They were slaughtered, cut into pieces. So we ran away. But now that there's peace, we've decided to come back.
At the beach, the people resume their livelihoods and go out fishing again. Calm has also returned to the village of Kinga. Displaced residents, like Abdallah Pinti back home after a whole year away seeking refuge.
There were gunshots, so we ran out of the house. And then my father fell. We looked back and then my mother said, "Abdallah, your father has been shot. Look, he's not getting up." His body was left there for 3 days.
When Abdallah Pinti came back, he found his home had been looted, but at least not burned down like many others. Now he's trying to farm again.
Lots of the young people have no work. They sit there doing nothing. But since the Rwandan army arrived, we've had peace. My mother and I can go to work in the fields again.
While the residents are relieved to be back, they're not happy with their government, which failed to protect them from the brutal insurgents. They also accuse government troops of heavy-handedness when they eventually arrived.
We expected better from our countrymen. When they meet us on the streets, they stop us and they mistreat us instead of going after the enemy. At one of their checkpoints, a young man on a motorcycle fell. The soldiers all started beating him until he died. They've killed a lot of people. It's not good.
Soldiers deny the accusations, and Mozambique's defense ministry has not responded to our questions on the claims. What's certain, though, is the conflict is far from over. In fact, it's moving further south, where attacks on villages are reported almost daily, now even in neighboring provinces like Nampula, farther away from where the troops from Rwanda and the regional bloc SADC are based.
Will keep moving southwards, so that is expected. So you just need to maintain vigilance. The forces, the SADC as well as our own forces, will maintain vigilance in the areas that we occupy. And for the areas that are beyond Cabo Delgado, like Nampula, the Mozambican forces will need to also up their game.
That increased vigilance will be vital here because the residents worry the threat could still return.
Now for more information and stories across the African continent, we head into the African Newspaper Review. We'll be right back. Also on the 1 p.m. English news on Golfe TV Africa, we head in now to the African Newspaper Review with my co-host, Hazel. How are you?
We're very fine, thank you, Metoke. Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm good.
Are you ready to give us the information trending on the African scene?
Yeah, are you ready to analyze?
I'm ever ready. I'm born ready.
All right, born ready. First, we start off the papers with papers coming in from the local territories to touch on the matin leave. Now, it talks about the front page reveals just right there, talking about the temporary detention in Benin prisons that have lasted on for years. Now, temporary detentions happen a lot in prisons around the world, around Africa. We know here, okay, because we have to base it off Nigeria, because we have a lot of experiences of Nigeria. Now, a lot of detention cases, temporary detention cases with a lot of those guys that do not have proper lawyers and do not have the proper, they don't know with law, they end up going into years. What do you think about, what's your take on that? And detention cases that are supposed to be temporary for a month, 2 months, for a year, but then it ends up going 10 years, 20 years.
Basically, I just simply feel it's the, the lack of personnel or inadequacy talking about that system in a country, in an African continent, the judiciary, the arm of government, the executive, the legislature, the arms of government that actually implement it. Because if a citizen is just supposed to be temporarily in detention for a month and he lacks the capacity, financial capacity to be able to require or pay for a lawyer, then the state, the government should be able to provide lawyers to stand for these people. A situation whereby you just see people staying there because they do not have any connection, they do not have money, they don't have the wherewithal. It's really a very sad case.
It's a sad case indeed, and that's what we have on the front page of the Martin League. It talks about the temporary cases of detention in the Republic of Benin that have gone on to stay for years. All right, we're moving on from the Matthew Leave and head on to easier papers as we touch on the nation Nigeria. The front page of the nation Nigeria reveals Amathekon cops that others can tackle banditry, says El-Rufai. It's a simplistic way of fighting bandits. Back to the Amathekon. You talked about the difficulty of having the police force itself and people that lack the orientation and lack the understanding of
the geography of a particular territory.
And how the Amathekon is so vital to these particular regions. And now he's come out to say it's a simplistic way of fighting bandits. Do you agree with this or you disagree?
When you say simplistic way of fighting...
Not me, he says.
Yes, that's El-Rufai. When El-Rufai is saying it's a simplistic way of fighting banditry, that simply means that, yes, that means he's for it. Do you understand? But the
do you feel it's a simplistic way? I know your take on it. You feel this is right, but is it simplistic? Because from the point of the federal government, it seems they look like vigilantes. They feel like that there are a lot of things they cannot control. There's a lot of unknowns to knowns because these are people that do not go through. It's not even paramilitary.
Yes.
There's military, there's paramilitary, and this is even paramilitary. So for the government, it might look a little bit complicated, but he has come out to say it's simplistic.
Yeah, well, I actually agree with him talking about the fact that it's simplistic because, you know, something starts from being simple before it gets to the point of becoming complex. Now, take, for example, who is a terrorist? A terrorist is simply somebody that causes mayhem in a community. If you have a farm and then somebody comes to forcefully eat your crops, that person is a terrorist. Now, if you cannot go out in your community by 7 o'clock because you have people carrying their cattle and are causing mayhem and that can kill you or rape your children, that act is terrorism. So when we talk about terrorism, most of the time what just comes into the thoughts and the minds of people is the Boko Haram terrorists. But then we have people, we have strangers, we have foreigners, we even have people in the community that are carrying out acts of terrorism. So you need to handle it in this simplified way before you now start talking about more complex issues.
Okay, I also think maybe when he says simplistic, I might be wrong here, but it might also be as a result of a different chain in command, in the sense that it's a shortened chain in command. In the sense that if it was the federal police or the state police, they might have to go, okay, federal, and then...
A lot of protocols, a lot of protocols.
This is just direct.
The governor gives the direct and then
he can...
they just go ahead.
That's what I feel. What do you think about that?
I think that's totally correct.
Also, 2023, it's reward time for Tinubu, says Kwara State Governor and Senator. Looking on the other side of that, we can get back on that. We have the punch to come. Also, appeal court ends Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Others IPOB leaders released. This is a huge story.
This is a huge story, you know, because Nnamdi Kanu is, you know, one of the solid block behind independent people of Biafra. A lot of the federal government of Nigeria calls them terrorists, they call them secessionists, they call them different things. But you know, when I was in university, one of the courses we did in university was the fact that a state or a people can agitate for succession. You can decide to say, I want to be recognized internationally, I no longer want to be in this territory. And then if the federal government decides to say, okay, you can go. But a situation whereby somebody is treated unlawfully, personally, I think the way the federal government has treated Nnamdi Kanu is totally unjust. Do you understand? Talking about the fact that he's a terrorist, he's leading to a lot of mayhem. No, he's just fighting for the succession of Biafra. He wants them to be recognized, and it's not against the law.
The treatment of the federal government is actually quite consistent with what secession is going through in other parts of the world. Look at it in Spain, in Catalonia, and that's Barcelona. Barcelona wanting to leave Spain itself, and every of those guys, every of the secessionists, every of the top leaders that supported Catalonia leaving Spain were all either driven out of the country or jailed.
Yeah, there's a history of several governments all around the world, you know, tackling secessionists. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, at what point should a people start agitating? What are the factors that led to the agitating of people? Do you understand? A situation whereby we say this is a federal country, this is a federal country, we have the Igbos, we have the Yorubas, Nigeria is a multi-ethnic country. Now the question is, are the interests of every single ethnic group met? Or are there people that are made to feel lesser than the other? Are there some other people that feel more equal than the other? Do you understand? It's a situation where someone starts feeling that I don't belong here. People don't treat me right. When you're talking about positions, you're talking about the presidency, you're talking about a whole lot of things that have to do with power and authority. It goes to a particular territory. People will always feel dissatisfied.
You see, to me, this is the beauty of the United States of America.
Yeah.
In the sense, they say the United States of America, but a lot of people don't even understand what it means. As different states, different laws,
conglomerates come together as one.
There are certain things the President of the United States, certain rules, laws he cannot change. He can only affect the federal state. He can only interfere in state matters that have to do with the international approach to the country. But in the country, locally, there's so much he cannot do. There's so much, he has influence, but there's so much he can. Because they don't want people from New York City to come tell them what to do in New Jersey.
Exactly.
Or in LA. So you cannot be in Abuja and come tell me what to do in Bayelsa. So, and I think this is what Ojukwu tried to fight for in the beginning. And a lot of people do not understand what he was fighting for. And the agreement he tried to come together with what was the name of the president? The dictator right there. Was he? I can't remember. Do you remember his name?
I think it was he the premier?
Yeah, but this guy was, I'm forgetting his name right now, but this was what he tried. This was the deal to try to handle or figure out in Ghana when they had this peace deal before everything changed. But he did not want a centralized system. He wanted every state
power to be decentralized.
Decentralized.
To flow. This territory can handle themselves. And they all pay tax to the federal government.
But still did not work out that way because, of course, the Northerners did not have as much as the Southerners and the Easterners had, and they felt if this happened, they would
at the end of the day, they would lose a lot.
And you know, when you say why federal governments are so afraid of secession is the fact that if the Igbos go, if Bayelsa goes, nothing's stopping the Yorubas from going, the Westerners from going as well, and that could just
lead to disintegration
of the entire country. So this is why a lot of countries are very against secessionists. All right, well, congratulations to Nnamdi Kanu and the people and his people that are firmly behind him.
Let's hope it stays like that for a while.
Of course. Now, still all the nation Nigeria look up. It says ASU in all-night meeting over strike. And actually, this news has actually developed, and we have a breaking news on that.
Yes, there's a breaking news talking about the fact that ASU has suspended the 8-month strike, you know, and then when I hear the word suspension, I'm not so excited. There's a difference with suspension and calling off. Suspension means we're just going to resume pending needs being met, but calling off simply means we have come to a compromise, and the fact that what we are asking for is what you have done, so we are going to call off the strike. So suspension, they could resume on Monday and then go on strike on Tuesday. But fingers crossed.
Precision of language. Precision of language. Also, Sanwo-Olu signs MOU with Avel York on Film City, page 4. Film City coming in Lagos. We can't wait for that. It will be the equivalent of what they have in Hollywood, in LA. Also, court acquits ex-governor Turaki of 8.3 billion naira fraud. Page 2. Why would the governor even be in the fraud in the first place? When you have all that, it just sullies your name. All right, moving on from that, we head to the next part of the edition as we touch on the Punch Nigeria. Still on Nigeria, it says World Bank, IMF to assess Nigeria's debt sustainability. We have that on page 19. PDP wars aggrieve party members. BOT delays report. We have that on page. You can stop when you have something to say. Yeah. We have that on page 25. Also, strike. Parents, students hopeful as ASU leaders meet. Hazel has informed us now that it hasn't been called off. It has been suspended, and there's a difference between being called off and suspension. Precision of language. Also, Sanwo-Olu gets federal government's approval for 2.5 billion Badagry Seaport. Page 7. A lot of improvement, a lot of development coming up in Lagos. The railway, the seaports, Eco Atlantic. Also, a new airport potentially in Lekki as well. Also, MTN provide 365,000 smartphones through financing scheme. We have them on page 7. Why? We can find out there. Cholera kills 231. NCDC warns against poor hygiene. Page 27. What do you think about the NCDC? I mean, throughout the pandemic and now the cholera and throughout Ebola, do you think they've actually?
I think they're doing well. You know, I think they're doing well. The fact that the information is out there, the fact that people are now aware the different pandemics that are coming into existence. Right now, the cholera pandemic, all the way from Uganda to Haiti, from Haiti back to Nigeria. So it's something that people really need to be aware that you need to take care of your environment. You need to take caution with the kind of water you drink. You need to just make sure you put safety measures so you don't fall victim of this pandemic. Because when a pandemic is in the atmosphere, everyone is susceptible to catching it.
Yeah. Very well. Also, Nnamdi Kanu jubilation in Southeast. Federal government may appeal judgment. We have that on page 2. Court says IPOB leaders abduction unlawful, slams executive for recklessness, and Onanze Sowore Southeast leaders statement. Kanu follows Hill's judgment. Will present judgment copy to DSS for Kanu to go home, says Okezimo. Okomaze. Okemezie. Thank you very much for that. 126 stranded Nigerians returned from Libya.
That's
page 8.
That is what we were just talking about, the International Day for the Girl Child and the pressure on ladies.
And looking at, if you can just even zoom, when you zoom into that, just right there. No, we can move on from that. Move on to next Republic edition. When you look into that, you can see a lot of girls.
That's it. That is the problem. Do you understand? The fact that because of the pressure to seek for greener pastures, because of the fact that the girl child and also the male child, but I'll focus on the girl child, because of the fact that the girl child wants to provide money for her family, she wants to be the breadwinner, she wants to take care of her children, she's pushed into going into different places. Now, a lot of these agencies will tell you, oh, get a job in America, oh, get a job in London, get a job in beautiful countries, and then they save a whole lot of money. And at the end of the day, you find out that these people will just be slave traders, sex slaves in Libya, in Iran. At the end of the day, their rights are totally truncated. Some of them die there, some of them die in slave camps, some of them die in sex camps. It's just really, really terrible. That's why it's very, very important to always verify the information. When somebody comes to meet you with a deal or a proposal, don't just go. Verify, and make sure you are going through the legal channel.
Also, another very shocking story that hit Lagos this morning is Lagos probes nurses for filming ex-Big Brother Nigeria's star's last moment. Did you see that story?
No, I did not.
Oh, he was in a state of emergency, and instead of helping him, he was being filmed.
Oh my God!
Because he's a Big Brother. So of course, Big Brother Nigeria is one of the biggest reality shows in Nigeria. Also, there was Big Brother Africa, also one of the biggest reality shows in Africa. And so, because this guy is a star, everybody knows him. You know Big Brother Nigeria.
Yes, of course.
And he got to the hospital, and there's this thing nurses have become to do now. Nurses, because of smartphones and the availability and the accessibility of smartphones everywhere in hospitals, when certain strange incidents happen, nurses film people doing stuff. And sometimes it's good because they catch people doing bad things, but sometimes also bad because now this guy was in a state of emergency, and instead of attending to him, he was being filmed.
Oh my God.
And he lost his life.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. So yeah, there's not going to be an investigation of that particular situation right there. Moving on from that, we head to the next revelation. Let's go real quick on the Punch Extra. The Punch Extra reveals Beckham won a goal versus Argentina. Talking about looking back at that, 1998, Ghana's Andre Ayew to start in Qatar. We have that on page 7. Argentina handed Di Maria boost for the World Cup. Thank you for that. Also, Osmeyer in 7th heaven after Ajax goal. We have that on page 7. Joshua offered double fight as Spirit Oaks collapse. We have that on page 6. Also, you should remember Anthony Joshua was the former heavyweight champion of the world. And also, he's also Nigerian, which means a lot of Nigeria. There's a whole lot of, hype about him in Nigeria. Also, back fans to Messi, you're a traitor. We have that on page 3. Club hails Salah for his historic hat-trick after beating Rangers 7-1. He scored a 30-minute hat-trick. Fantastic right there. To the Europa League, as you say, Saka strikes Ghana's victory. We have that as they beat Bono and Clemt in Arsenal, winning that match 1-0. United versus Nuka. Uhozo, superb from for Red Devils as he edged over Omonia. But Manchester United defeated Nicosia on that match 1-0. But the Nigerian international had arguably his finest game of his career. Let me just show this to you real quick. We have the Nigerian international goalkeeper called Uhozo.
Yeah.
He's always dreamed of playing for
the big leagues.
Yeah, of course, the big leagues. Now, Manchester United. Everybody knows Manchester United. It's a global brand. And the name of the stadium is called the Theatre of Dreams. So Uhozo, as a kid, is a Manchester United fan. He's always support Manchester United. he's gone on to play in Europe, and finally he saw the draw and he was going to play against Manchester United. He was excited. He said, finally I'm going to play in this stadium called the Theatre of Dreams. And yesterday he made his dreams. His dreams came true in the Theatre of Dreams as he played against Manchester United.
Stating, if only you can dream.
And arguably he's the biggest game of his life. He was so good yesterday. He had all the commentators, everybody talking about this Nigerian kid.
Amazing.
But some Nigerians are very upset. They say, well, university in the country. Agranda denied bail again. Well, that's all we have for you for this edition of the African Newspaper Review. I'm Michael ADOGLO, and Hazel helped us dissect.
Thank you so much, ADOGLO. Now, dear viewers, to conclude today's news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. Speaking to journalists on Wednesday, former Chadian opposition figure Saleh Kazabo promised to accompany the young Chadian ruler.
According to statistics, girls all over the world are victims of inequality and unfair treatment in various spheres.
We also saw that in Sudan, 7 million children do not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly 2/3 of the 45 million inhabitants live.
All the viewers, and so we conclude this edition of the 1 p.m. English News, coming to you live from Golfe TV Africa. I'm Michael ADOGLO.
And I am Hazel OGOIGBE. Enjoy the rest of your day.